Hi everyone, this is Cindy from Cindy Reads, and I am back with my March roundup. So what I read for March, I read 40 books. I haven't yet decided what book is my favorite. I read a lot of Kindle Unlimited books. I won't say Kindle Unlimited books are bad because they're not, but they tend to not be the best reading. Sometimes they're insta-love, sometimes they're really short. I did find some Kindle Unlimiteds I really liked. If you don't know about Kindle Unlimited, it is a subscription through Amazon. You can read, ebooks, and the Kindle Unlimited books tend to be free. So with your subscription. So I've read quite a few of those. Let's go ahead and get started because 40 books is a lot. So the first one I want to talk about is Archer, which is Unchained Omegaverse by Callie Rhodes. And I read quite a few Omegaverse novels. So if you don't know what Omegaverse is, they can be reverse harem, they can be MF, they can be menage. And basically they follow certain rules in their society where everyone is either an alpha, a beta, or omega. Alphas are the top of the food chain. Betas are just sort of average people, and omegas are very coveted. They tend to be women. Sometimes they're men, but mostly women. They tend to be coveted by alphas. Alphas really can only mate with omegas. They're quite dirty, and they're not for everybody. I find that the ones by Callie Rhodes are a good introduction. They tend to be a little gentler, not as rough, because some of the ones I've read have been really, really hardcore. So in this one, this is a spin-off from the original series, which was the Omegaverse Boundary Lands. And so in this one, in the last bit of the Boundary Lands series, we find that a bunch of alphas have been kept captive in a prison, underground prison, and they break out. And so this Unchained Omegaverse is these escaped alphas finding their way in the world after being imprisoned and finding their mates. So in this one, let's see, Archer's taken over an abandoned house, and Sarah has been fighting to gain that house as part of her inheritance. Her grandmother left it to her, but her family was fighting her for it because they want to control her life, I guess. So she took them to court, finally won her case, and is going to go off the grid and live in her grandmother's house. And when she gets there, she finds that it's been taken over by this alpha, who actually is quite mean to her. And I have to say that this was my least favorite of Callie Rhodes' books that I read. I did give it 3 stars. I just thought that he was really mean, and he was in the wrong. I mean, he's a squatter, so he talked a lot about breaking her neck, and I mean, they eventually find their happily ever after, but I didn't care for him very much. Most of the alphas are much more loving towards their potential mates than he was. Next, I read Breadwinner by Frankie Love, and I only gave that 2 stars. It was kind of boring. I don't mind an insta-love. It just has to have some substance. And so this really didn't have any substance. So basically, this guy's lonely, wishes that a woman would fall out of the sky, and a woman does. She moves in next door as the new nanny. He sees her, instantly falls in love with her, moves her into her house. That couple ends up getting a divorce and moving away, and she stays with him. It's basically the story. So this is kind of whatever. Next, I read The Rake Gets Ravished by Sophie Jordan, and that I got from NetGalley, and I gave that one 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. It was slightly spicy, which I enjoyed. Sometimes I find historicals to be a little bit too tame for me. This one was not. It had enough spice in there to keep me interested. Basically, let's see, Mercy, her twin brother bets the family farm in a poker game, and Mercy breaks into the gambling hall to steal the IOU from the owner of the gambling hall. He catches her and she pretends that she's there to seduce him. They have a wild night together. She leaves with the note, and at least she knows that she feels like she's ever going to get married. So at least she had this adventure, and it was good. She was excited about it. And she goes back home to deal with sort of the drama of her life of trying to keep their family together and to keep her stupid brother from betting more things away. And so he figures out, I forget what his name is, the rake. Anyway, he figures it out, and he realizes that she was a virgin. And so he goes to supposedly steal, the IOU back. But really, he feels a connection with Mercy and, finds that he really likes her. And so that's kind of the story of them sort of maybe finding their way and dealing with this Raquel brother that they have. But it was really good. I enjoyed it. And so then I read Diesel, which is another Unchained Omegaverse by Kelly Rhodes. This one I gave 4 stars. I liked it much, much better. So basically, he is captured by these low-life farmers. And I say low-life because they're kind of low-lives. They live on the farm, and they abuse their sister. They use her to feed them, clean up after them, take care of the farm. She basically keeps everything running while they spend money and they come up with schemes. And the scheme was they find this alpha. He had been poisoned in the prison, and so when he escaped, he still had the poison in him, which made him weak. They were able to capture him, and they're going to use him in a fighting ring and make money. And so the alpha is biding his time to escape, and in the meantime, the Ruby, the sister, she's going to help him escape because she knows what her brothers are doing are wrong. And of course, she's very attracted to him. She's been told all her life that she's not attractive, that she's homely. No man's ever going to want her. And Archer, or Diesel, is a gorgeous, gorgeous man. There's no way he would ever be interested in her, but he sees into her heart and is connected with her as a good person. Is connected with her on a higher plane than just looks. And so he doesn't just want to leave. He wants to leave and take Ruby with him. And so they really connect. And I really enjoyed this story because the romance was really strong in it. And then I read my 5-star read. Oh, this will probably be my best book of the month. It's When He's Sinful by Suzanne Wright. I love Suzanne Wright. So if you are a paranormal fan, she's my absolute favorite. If you like shifter romances, she's my favorite. I just think she's amazing. So this particular series is the Olympus Pride, and it's a spin-off of her original Mercury Pack series. I think it's the Phoenix Pack and the Mercury Pack. They all sort of are connected, and this is an offshoot of that. And Olympus Pride, they are palace cats, which I love the fact that she's got some really cool sort of shifter lore in here. And so in this, these are kind of secondary characters in the last book. They are good friends and used to be loners of the new Luna, the Alpha's wife, who was in the last book. So Abspin and Camden have been BFFs since their days sort of in the orphanage because they were loners. So Aspen is targeted by a stalker, and Camden ends up taking their relationship to the next level. He's always felt this possessiveness towards Aspen and connected his life with her. Even though they've had other relationships, he's really only wanted her. And so this stalker gives him an opportunity to make his move. And so it's fabulous. I loved it. So the next one I read is Redeemed Cowboy, and is the next book in the Protector Cowboy. I think was the first book. I reviewed it last month. I gave it 3 stars. This is also 3 stars. So the Playboy Ryan, he's one of the brothers. He fights his attraction to their assistant, like secretary Mia, who was in love with him. So she overhears him diminishing her and talking rudely about her. And so she decides that she's going to give up on him because they're never going to be. He's too busy sowing his seed all across town, and she's kept herself chaste for nothing. So she goes on a date, and he finds out about it and finds that he's actually very jealous about it. At the same time that he's supposed to be taking her to some charity ball that they sponsor. But anyway, she gets this makeover. She goes on the date, and he realizes that she's a diamond in the rough and that he's attracted to her and he wants her. So he decides to pursue her. And so I just don't like the idea that until she had this makeover, he didn't notice her. And, you know, that she had to change her appearance in order for him to value her, or that she had to go on a date with another man for him to realize that, you know, this possessiveness that he wanted was more possessiveness really than caring. So 3 stars. And let's see, Kiss Me Cowboy by Diana Palmer. This was a NetGalley. It's a 2-in-1 to review on NetGalley, and I gave it 4 stars. I actually liked these ones. They're vintage Palmer, but better, because a lot of times Diana Palmer is a slow burn, and so these were not so slow burn. The romance happened fairly quickly. There was kissing and a little bit of spice fairly early on, and I liked that. So it seemed a little more 21st century to me. And they have unique storylines in both of these. So, and the men are not jerks. Usually the men in Diana Palmer books are real assholes, and these ones are not so assholey. Let's see, the first one, Rancher's Wedding. So Cassie's a screenwriter. She's hiding out due to a scandal, and she meets up with a very wealthy rancher. They fall in love. He finds out that she's actually a famous screenwriter. He sees her as lying to him, and he's mean to her. She runs away back to New York because the scandal's worked itself out, and he realizes that he made a big mistake. And so he has to go grovel. The next one, and they're connected sort of, is, I forget what the next one is called. Colorado Cowboy. So Esther is wealthy. Her mother is murdered by her boyfriend, and she sees it happen. So she runs and ends up on the doorstep of this sort of loner rancher, and they develop a relationship and they fall in love. And he finds out that she's an heiress, and it hurts his ego because he's not wealthy. And so he's not very nice to her. And she runs away. So he has to grovel and chase her and beg for forgiveness. But I liked it. It was good. I enjoyed it. It was 4 stars, both of them. Knock Her Up by Sam Crescent. I gave this 2 stars. This one is, how do I put this? It's kind of boring. So this lawyer has the hots for his secretary. He decides it's time to make his move, so he invites her to dinner and tells her, but she already knows because he wrote it down. I don't know. She sees his plan and she's fine with it. So they develop a relationship. And just, I don't know. If it's not going to have a lot of angst, then it needs to have a really good development of their romance. And both were lacking. So kind of boring. Taken by Her Irish Alpha by Haley Ware. This is a shifter romance, 2 stars. I don't know that I like Haley Ware. I just, maybe she's just not for me. It's the second book I've read by her, the third book, and I'm just very confused. They don't make sense. So 10 years ago, God, what is her name? Ryla was supposed to marry Killian, and it was like an arranged mating, but they're also fated mates, and she didn't want to be forced to marry him, so she runs away. And so she's been gone for 10 years, but now he's now an alpha, he has to marry his fated mate, or he's going to lose his pack. So he has to go and get her, R'lyeh, and get her to mate him. And so she agrees to go back with him after holding up in her apartment and hiding from him, and basically falls into bed with him and basically mates him, and basically everything's good. So I don't get it. And I don't really like books where there's huge time lapses between the characters. I feel like 5 years is my limit. If it's more than 5 years, it's ridiculous because, yeah, especially if neither of them had gotten married or had relationships or had children in that time. After 10 years, it's ridiculous. If it's 10 years and they had a life, that's one thing. But I really don't like when there's huge gaps between the characters. So I gave that 2 stars. I didn't care for the writing. Just wasn't for me. Shattered Wolf by Kayla Wolf. 3 stars. She's another one that I'm not sure I like her style of writing. I'm not sure I enjoy the world she's created. I'm still on the fence. I did give this one 3 stars. So let's see. Cass and Isaac, they were mates 10 years ago. They were in love. They were going to run away together because the alpha that was taking over was very brutal. And I think he killed their family. He injured one of their friends really badly, and they made plans to run away. And when they went to go run away, he stayed behind and vowed loyalty towards the evil alpha and rejected his mate. So she was shattered and she left town, ended up in this like shifter town where she lived for 10 years. So anyway, the evil alpha ends up finding this town and wants to take over. Cass is sort of the mini alpha of her little pack of friends. And she sort of teams up with Isaac and his friend to try and prevent the evil alpha from taking over. And so they resolve some of their issues, even though she feels abandoned by him. I'm not sure his reasons were good enough. 10 years is a long time again. Let's see. Jenica Snow Unwrapped, 3 stars. This is a novella, really short. It's sexy. Delaney and Ivan are strongly attracted to each other. They work together. They're up for the same promotion. She feels very competitive. He not so competitive. He really likes Delaney, and so they get snowed in. He makes his move. They hook up, and he pursues a relationship with her after the snow clears. It was okay. 3 stars. Then I read some books I really enjoyed by A.P. Jensen, who I guess hasn't really written anything in a while. Emma Secret, 4 stars. And I also read, well, I'll start with Emma Secret. So Emma's in a long-distance relationship with Peter for a year. He forgets their anniversary, which also happens to be the anniversary of her parents' death. She had been driving. She's still traumatized by those events. She lost her fiancé. He left her, or actually, he left the scene of the crime, and she basically couldn't forgive him for not being supportive when this accident happened, and so they broke up. And so she figures that she really deserves more out of a relationship than what Peter's giving her. They're in a long-distance relationship. He goes months without seeing her, and she's just kind of had enough. And he is trying to distance himself from Emma because he feels too much for her. And then she breaks up with him, and he's really upset. So he can't understand why he's so upset. Eventually realizes it's because he really cares for her. And so he has a lot of things to make up to her because she's not sure if she really wants to continue a relationship with him, especially when the ex-fiance pops up. So it was good. Some groveling. I enjoyed that. Can't Let Go by A.P. Jensen. This also is 4 stars. Mitchell destroys his relationship With Grace, he sees a pregnancy test and he accuses her of trapping him, but the pregnancy test wasn't even hers. It was her sister's. They break up because he said some pretty horrible things to her. He doesn't realize that she came from and still comes from a very traumatic, abusive background, and she's just not going to tolerate that in a mate. So she leaves him. He realizes his mistake and tries to get her back. She wants nothing to do with him. It's been 6 months, it's been a year. No, it's been over a year. I think it's a year. Her sister's had the baby, and her sister's in an accident and dies. And so now she has to take care of her niece, and ends up leaning on Mitchell to help her. And he does help her, and he uses that to his advantage to get back with her. And he has to grovel a lot, and he does. And he is the first to say, I love you. And he does everything he can. And she's still quite resistant. So I appreciated that. And it was really good. I enjoyed it. Let's see. Lost in Wolf Dreams by A.P. Jensen. This one's only 3 stars. It was a little confusing. She can't remember the last month. And this werewolf says, you're my girlfriend. And I'll help you remember. And she goes back with him because she's trying to figure out what is happening. And she discovers that he lied to her. So it had its moments, but I think it was a little fractured in the storytelling. So not bad. Life's Too Short by Abby Jimenez, 4 stars. And I read this for NetGalley. And it could have been 5 stars, but I think there was just parts of it I felt were a little too, she was a little too down on herself. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to give away too much. But Vanessa, she's a YouTuber. She lives life to the fullest. Her mom and her sister both died before they reached the age of 30. They both had ALS. And so she's afraid that she's going to get it too, and she's going to die young. Her sister, her younger sister, who has the same father but a different mother, I think, has a baby she can't take care of. So Vanessa's taking care of the baby, and that's how she meets her next door neighbor, who's an attorney who just broke up with his girlfriend, who he didn't realize has been married the whole time that they've been together. And so he's a really great guy. For the most part, he really cares for Vanessa, cares for their niece. But yeah, there are parts of the story that I felt were just a little too dramatic and a little over the top in sort of her planning to die at 30. It was just a little bit too morbid for me. But I did enjoy the romance. I did enjoy the hero. I thought he was really good. So I did give it 4 stars because I did really enjoy it. Okay, Stepbrother Weekend by Olivia Turner. This is Insta Love Smut. 3 stars. Eleanor meets her new ex-convict stepbrother. They fall insta love and insta in bed, and it's pretty spicy, and I enjoyed it very much. 3 stars. And that's a Kindle Unlimited. Aliens Mate by Tina Moss. 3 stars. I reviewed this for NetGalley. It didn't suck, but it wasn't great. I think it's more of a 2.5 stars. I think 3 stars is generous. She's a mechanic, a human mechanic. She's pulled into a wormhole, and Alien Brock ends up going in after her, realizes that she's his mate, and goes in after her in this wormhole, and they end up having to find a way to survive this alien planet together and try to get back to their own world. And it didn't suck, but it wasn't great. It was just kind of meh. Alpha Brute by Sarah Fields, 4 stars. This is, I guess you call it dark romance, smut, definitely smut, kink, definitely kink in here, and I'm here for it. So Elijah is second in command to the Alpha, and they are wolves. But the alpha is quite weak. He just really depends on his muscle to keep himself in power. And he is going to marry off his daughter for an advantage. And she has been groomed for this and is okay with it, except when she finds out that her father has decided to align himself with the vampires. And she's not okay with being a vampire's bride because she'll never have children, and it's a vampire. So she's not happy with that. While Elijah realizes that the alpha's daughter, which I forget her name, Ashley, is his fated mate. And so he's taking Ashley and he's leaving the pack, and he's going to make his own pack because he's a natural born alpha. And so he does. And I enjoyed the story very much. There was definitely a lot of sex. There's definitely some kink. There's some action. So it kind of hit all the right spots for me. And so I gave it 4 stars. Then we have Big Boss by Lonnie Ree, and that was a 3-star read for me. So let's see. Rianne starts a new job and actually sends an inappropriate text to her new boss. He reads it and calls her into his office, not to fire her, but to take her up on her offer. And so they develop a relationship. You know, sexy, spicy, insta love. I enjoyed it. It was good. Midlife Bear Daddy by Ruby Knox was 3 stars. So Reese and Michelle were close friends in high school. Everyone thought they were going to be mated. They had the signs of being fated mates. And Michelle had kissed him, and I don't know if they were caught. I don't know, but he acted badly. Humiliated Michelle in front of all their friends, and their relationship was basically busted up. So she left town. She married a human, and she's back after 10 years. She got divorced. She couldn't have children with him. She kept having miscarriages probably because he was human, probably because he wasn't her mate. So she's back in town, and they see each other and instantly sort of have this connection and fall into bed together and realize that they actually have a lot in common and that they really like each other. But he has a stalker. So it was okay. 3 stars. Then was Claiming Macy by Sam Crescent. This one I gave 4 stars. I like this one. It's age gap. So Wilson, I think he's in a motorcycle gang. He's in love with Macy, who's a waitress at a diner. And he goes to the diner all the time, to see Macy. He really cares for her. And he finally makes this move and asks her out. And they fall in love, and it's a very sweet sort of story. And I like it. I liked it a lot. The romance was very, very strong in this one. Very strong. Then I read The House of Sky and Breath. So I'm actually going to probably do a separate video on this one. My review. I gave it 5 stars on Goodreads, but it's probably more of a 4.5 stars. And so it's 800 pages. I just don't have enough time to talk about that one, but we will talk about it. I read the audio Abandoned in Death by J.D. Robb, 5 stars. Eve has to find a killer that's targeting women who look like the perpetrator's mother, because they figured out that he's old. He's like 60, and killing women who look like his mother when he last saw her. And so it was good, and audio, it's amazing. So then I read Head Over Heels, the book of the month. So I have the link to my book of the month referral link in the description box. And so if you decide to join, then your first book is $5. And after that, of course, you can skip a month, you can cancel. To get a book for $5 is great. You could just keep skipping until you find a book that you really like, because then they're $15.95. I actually got a second account because $5 was just a good deal to get a book. So I'm gonna do some of the book of the months that I got. So the first one I'm going to share with you guys, Head Over Heels. I finished this one. It's almost all caught up with book of the month. So Head Over Heels She's a former gymnast. She was basically on her way to the Olympics, and she had a very bad accident. And she did go to college, but it caused a lot of depression. She ended up dropping out of college. She knew nothing else in her life but gymnastics because that's what she did since she was really, really young, basically to prepare her to be in the Olympics. And then she didn't go to the Olympics. So it really kind of sheds a light a little bit on these athletes who train to be in the Olympics and what happens to them if they don't make it. You know what I mean? Like, that's all they know. And so she's kind of drifting, and she was in a relationship that didn't work out. So she ended up coming home to her small town, back to her childhood bedroom with her mom and dad. And the place where she used to train as a kid is now, one of the girls there is being coached by another former Olympian who she knew when they were back on the circuit. And he calls her up and wants her to come help train this Olympic hopeful because she needs a lot of help on her floor exercise. And so Avery used to be like the best at it. And so she says no at first, but then she says yes. And it really helps her find her purpose. And so it's one of those books that's definitely a romance, but also it's a women's fiction too, because Avery really kind of grows and finds her way and her strength in this book. And so I really enjoyed it, and I enjoy the gymnastics, and it was great. And this is by Hannah Ornstein, and I gave it 4 stars. I really, really enjoyed it. The other book that I got, which was my last month's, which is Dating Dr. Dill. So I wasn't sure whether I was going to enjoy this. They're both Indian American, and I did enjoy the fact that they were Indian American because it was just this whole other cultural part of society that I didn't really know a lot about. They're American born, but their families are from India, so they bring a lot of their Indian customs with them, and the need to marry their offspring off. That's important to this sort of generation. And so she's approaching 30. She lives with her father and her sister who's getting married. And the father announces he's going to retire and he's going to sell their house. And she's very upset because that's her mother's house, and she's spent this entire time taking care of her mother's house, taking care of her mother's car. And she wants to buy the house from her father, but it's more money than she can handle. And the dad says, well, if you get engaged to be married, I have money saved for you for your marriage, and I can give you that money. And so she has 4 months to find a boyfriend. And he is a doctor who is on a talk show, and kind of the same thing. His family is pushing him to get married. And what happens is that his reputation is ruined actually by Karina on his talk show, because he says that love isn't important in a relationship, that it actually hurts people's hearts. And so Karina gets very, very upset because she wants a love match. She doesn't just want an arranged marriage. And so it ruins his reputation. A lot of people are upset with Dr. Dill. The truth is he's very attracted to Karina because they had one magical night together, but he kind of left her hanging. And so anyway, they really connect. And so while Karina is trying to meet men on online dating, which is pretty hilarious, he really is only focused on dating Karina. And so it's kind of their relationship. It's very funny. It's very interesting. Great romance. Super spicy. Highly recommend. I think I gave it 5 stars. Did I give it 5 stars? I gave it 4.5 stars. I don't know why I didn't give it 5 stars. It's great. Maybe I'll change it to 5 stars because I really enjoyed it. The other book of the month, Eris Gets Duke. So I ended up going to Barnes & Noble and buying the second book in it because I really enjoyed it. Marie Violet's story. So this is August. She's an American heiress. The beginning of the book, their friend is basically being sold to a duke, she's screaming and yelling. She doesn't want to get married, and everyone ignores her. And it's pretty horrifying to August and her sister that their family would do this to her. Because they're very wealthy, but they don't have respectability because they're new money and they're looked down upon in society. But they figure that their parents would never do that to them. And so they end up going to England to visit their friend. And there's a duke there who's impoverished, who needs an heiress to save his family home. And he's shopping around. He doesn't want to, but he has to find a woman to marry. And so the sister, Violet, is being shopped around because she's very biddable. Not the older sister, August, who's seen sort of as a blue stocking, maybe unmarriageable. But the Duke, of course, only has eyes for August. They have a connection and a lot of flirtation and kissing. And he decides that she's the one that he wants, but he wants her to want him too. And it's great. It's a great love story. It's a fabulous historical. I really enjoyed it. I believe I gave it 5 stars. My other 5-star read was an audiobook called A Not So Meet Cute by Megan Quinn. So maybe if I read this book, it would not be so funny, but on audio, it was freaking hysterical. I was laughing in my car. It's hilarious. Has echoes of Pretty Woman a little bit. So like Lottie's been fired by her frenemy, who has like a lifestyle blog or something like that. And she fires Lottie because she doesn't want to have to pay her more money. So she fires her. So Lottie was supposed to move out of her parents' house, and now she can't. She has no money. She has no job. She doesn't want to go to the reunion. She just feels humiliated. And so she makes a joke about finding a rich husband. And so she actually gets dressed and goes into this wealthy neighborhood and is walking around and literally runs into a businessman who needs a fake girlfriend because he is trying to get this deal, and runs into Dave, the guy he wants to get a deal with, and his pregnant girlfriend, and verbal diarrhea ensues and says that he has a pregnant fiance as well. So he has to come up with a pregnant fiance. So he runs into, what is her name? I wrote it down. His name is Huxley, or Lottie. Runs into Lottie, literally runs into her, and they meet at Chipotle, where they discuss the possibilities of fake dating and him maybe helping her get a job and, paying off her loans, and she playing the fake fiance. So it's their story. There are hilarious things that happen because she's having to fake being pregnant. I really enjoyed it. Highly recommend. It was fun. Let's see. Breeding Her by Darcy Rose. 2 stars. Insta love, spicy, but this one is like so shallow. He sees her in a restaurant or in a diner. She's like 8 months pregnant. He takes her home and has sex with her, and now they're in love. It's terrible. That was not good. Secretary and the Cowboy. This one by Ella Good. I didn't write down who it was by. I think it was by Ella Good. 3 stars. So it's the last justice cousin. He falls for a sweet secretary. It's insta love, some steam, little bit of drama, but not much. And the epilogue wraps up the series. 3 stars. Infiltrating Her Mates by Kylie Marcus. I gave this 3 stars. It's probably more of a 3.5 stars. The alpha finds his fated mate. She wanders into their warehouse where they do these fights for people to be able to get into their pack. So she has to fight him. So he lets her win because he realizes that she's his mate, but she has amnesia. She doesn't remember who she is and how she ended up there. And that's all a mystery. And so there's some angst about that. I think it has potential, the series. It just needed to be fleshed out a little bit more, really developed. Return of the Outback Billionaire. This is a DNF for me by Kelly Hunter. It is a super boring Harlequin Presents. And I gave it 1 star because it was so boring. I could not handle it. I couldn't even I couldn't even skim it to get to the end. It was so boring. It's a 1 star. I did not care for it. Let's see. His Hidden Omega by Mina Carter is part of a series or a serial. The first 3 sort of set up the world that they live in, and it's about these twins, and a woman that they used to have a crush on. She lived next door to them. And so this particular book is about their friend, Bane, who was introduced in that series. And so Willow is hiding the fact that she is an Omega. So Omegas basically have no power. They are pretty much stolen and taken to be, prizes for alphas. So she's hidden who she is with patches and things like that, even though she knows that Bane is her actual fated alpha. He's supposed to be hers. And she hides it from him, but she has to ask him for help because her sister's been kidnapped. Because there's a ring of people who are stealing young women and giving them a drug to try to turn them into Omegas. And so she wants to save her sister. And so she has to ask Bane for help. And so it was good. I really, really enjoyed it. It's 4 stars. Blood and Bone by Cece Woods, a paranormal shifter romance. I gave that 4 stars. I really, really liked it. So Lachlan used to be the alpha, but his wife, mate, was killed. She was a witch. She was killed in a battle, which I think there's a previous series before this one. So she was killed in a battle. He's been struggling for the past 2 years. And let's see, what is her name? Chloe is his fated mate or second chance mate. And she is a member of the pack. And so she's been helping him recover from losing his mate. And because he's struggling so hard and so resistant to being happy, he doesn't recognize that Chloe's his mate. And so Chloe is starting to suffer from that. And so she decides that she's going to leave. But she's also going to leave because she wants to find out what happened to her parents who were murdered. So she has a really good excuse to leave, but really she doesn't plan on coming back because she can't deal with the heartache of being around Lachlan and not being with him. And so he's hurting her. But Lachlan is upset that Chloe's left. He wants to help her find her parents' killers. And when he realizes she doesn't plan on coming back, he wants to know why. And he's drawn to her. And it was really good. I really liked it. Lots of action, romance. It was good. And then Daddy's Sweet Ride by Olivia Fox, 3 stars. This is a little and daddy kink romance. So Jax is instantly attracted to Chloe. Chloe has struggled with bipolar. She goes to therapy. She takes medicine. She really tries to take care of herself. She is conflicted with her sister who steals from her and has stolen her boyfriend, has stolen money from her, and brings her a lot of stress. Jax does his best to help alleviate that stress and to support and take care of her, but respecting her boundaries too. And it was good. I think I really liked it because of the fact that Chloe did have sort of this illness and was, doing her best to have a full life. So I really liked it. It was good. Vengeance, Snow, and Vengeful Reapers. I think that's what it's called. 2 stars by Theodora Taylor. So it's an NC romance with 3 guys. They call themselves Vengeance, and they only sleep with women as a team. And so they really like Allie, who has been studying to be a doctor for the last 5 years. They've known her for 5 years. They've been trying to go out with her for 5 years, and she will not be deterred from being a doctor. She is now weeks away from being a doctor. She hasn't been able to go to her house because her aunt has shown up with some dirtbag gangbanger, and she's scared to go home. But that night she does go home, and he tries to rape her, and she ends up killing him and has to call Vengeance for help. And so Vengeance does help her, but they also kind of capture her. So I don't know. Just sometimes I don't mind these kind of books, but this one was, I don't know. I didn't care for it. It had parts of it I just really didn't like. So I don't know. And so 2 stars. And then this is a DNF, 1 star. Mary Janice Davidson, Mad for a Mate. Hated it. Can't figure out what that was about. I did not care for it. 1 star. Then I read Mr. Serious by Alyssa Lee, 2 stars. I just found it was too short. It's instant love. So Regan meets Christian at a bar. He falls for her. He helps her build a deck. They're in love. It was okay. And then Her Falcon by Fiona Davenport. I gave that 4 stars. Ramsey is a falcon shifter. She is kept prisoner in a basement in a cage in her falcon form for over a year. He also tries to, the guy who captures her, chops her wings up. Like, I guess he's trying to, when you cut the wings so they can't fly, he was trying to do that, but he just butchered her instead. So she was in a lot of pain. She's saved by the father of a girl who's married to a shifter. So he knows about shifters. He realizes that she's a shifter. He protects her, gets her out of that safe house once it's, been found out. He helps her get out, finds a pack for her, and is very protective of her. And so she is recovering. Ramsey's recovering, and she realizes that her fated mate is there, but she just does not feel ready to meet him. She's damaged. She's still recovering. She's just not ready to meet him yet. Not that she doesn't want to meet him. It's just now is not the time. So the alpha helps her go to a friend's pack where she can recover and then maybe meet her mate later. Her mate, who is also a falcon, he doesn't want to wait, so he tracks her down and then helps her himself recover. It was good. I enjoyed it. I liked the fact that they were falcons. It was like kind of unusual for a story to be about falcons, so I liked it. Let's see. I have 3 more books, but I just finished them, so I didn't write anything down. One was His Refused Mate by Jade Marshall. This is part of a series about one particular pack. I think this is book 3. And I think this is going to be a 3-star read, I think. Basically, the 2 main characters have a very strong relationship. When she turns 18, she realizes that she's his fated mate. He's older. He doesn't believe he deserves to have her as his mate because he had to fight his brother for Alpha. They're twins, and he lost. And so he just feels like he doesn't have importance and doesn't deserve her. And she wants him and loves him and tries to get him to acknowledge her, but he keeps trying to run away. So anyway, I enjoyed it, but it's kind of short. Dodging the Alpha by Viola Grace. This is a weird take on a Omegaverse. She's a beta. He's an alpha. She smells like chocolate, and people try to attack her because she smells so good. It's a really weird world that I can't quite figure out, but I still wanted to find out what happened, so that's why I got 3 stars. But I'm still confused about the world. I couldn't explain it to you. It's bizarre. And I'm sure that I'm missing something. There's a whole other series before it that I think maybe if I read that first, it would be more enjoyable and I'd understand it, but right now I don't understand it. Sexy Wild Beast by Elle Nicole. This is going to be either a 3 or 4-star read. I like it much better than the first book. Might be even a 4-star because I thought it was very unique. The mother is not a shifter, but she has some other sort of powers, and she sees that her daughter is going to be attacked by a bear shifter, and that he's going to be her mate. And she's a young child at the time, so the mom hides her, cloaks her, has someone else help her do this. And so she's basically invisible to everyone except for her immediate family. So she's lived an invisible life. She hasn't gone to school. She has no friends. she's been invisible this whole time. And now that she's over 18, she's drawn to her mate, who is a grizzly shifter, who's a good guy. And he kind of knows she's around. He's kind of figuring it out because he smells her. She smells him. And he is trying to figure out what is happening because she's invisible. So it's really horrible when you think about the fact that basically her family sort of imprisoned her, and they think it's okay. So, and it's not okay. So anyway, I think I enjoyed the uniqueness of that. So that's 40 books. I've already read a couple of books. I've got another book that's almost done that I'm going to be putting down for April. And I'm going to work on my TBR for April. And I'm going to do a video just on Crescent City, House of Sky and Breath. So thank you for watching. This is Cindy with Cindy Reads.